Hi everyone. So the weekly stock market update part 1, which, as you know, started breaking into 2 parts. And the first part, the new thing that I launched was the sort of the profit playbook, the market insider insights. This is the bit where I use my connections, networks, my know-how, all the rest of it, from government and the work I do in government, working with tech companies, all the way to what I see from the hedge fund industry, things crossing my desk to give you insights. And these are some of the things we're going to talk about in this update. So it's a macro overview. And the reason it's done as a separate video is that, in case you don't want to watch it, go and look at the traditional stock market update later. But also the reason it's here is because I will then feed that into why there might be certain biases in certain sectors and stocks that we're looking at. So it gives you just more of a feed. And just to explain that, over the past fortnight, and you remember this from last week's update, the connections, it occurred to me, I've got so many networks and connections. You'll see on LinkedIn, there's a whole bunch there, and the stuff that I do in Parliament, US government. She's now Director of National Intelligence, so the CIA reports to her. The various events I do with companies from around the world in various sectors. I wanted to use all of that. I used to sit on the Council of Chatham House, which is the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and also I sat on the board. I was a director of the United Nations Association in the United Kingdom, amongst others. Anyway, so pull in all those resources, all the things that come across my desk. This was what happened this morning. It was a bunch of cybersecurities from around the world, which I was hosting. I was hosting a session where I was interviewing one of the companies, which was just won, with my help, a contract, both with the Foreign Office, and they've set up in the UK and won a contract with BAE Systems. So just feeding some of those things. Okay, that's cyber, AI, quantum. What does that mean for our portfolios in the Great Investments Program? And the reason all these pictures are here is because I was also in LinkedIn, if you can read the article there anyway, explaining how I've been representing the UK government. That's me in China, in Beijing, on the 12th of September 2001. 12th of September, yeah, the day after 9/11, because I was appointed by the person who lives at that address. That's not me in 2020, in 2001. That's me last year. But the point being, you've got all this stuff you're getting from whether it's government, Foreign Office, hedge funds, cybersecurity companies. Why not put that in? So sorry for the long intro. I'll try and limit it in future. But let's get on to some of these things. And what I want to try and do with these things is to give you insights, which if you can get it elsewhere, then I won't give it. And it's the same rule I had with my Bloomberg TV show. Unless it's original and insightful, I'm not going to give it. So first things first, Trump tax, the tariffs, okay, where everybody in the media seems to be quite left-wing economist and traditional economist, reading textbooks from the 1960s. And just don't understand it. The US dollar has appreciated because of the stability and the anticipated rise in asset classes in the US, including its stock market rising. So the US dollar has increased. There's also a feeling that interest rates will stay higher for longer because of growth. Okay, that's anticipated from Trump. He's going to reduce corporation tax. Growth, okay? Growth means more people want to hold US assets, which means inflation, potentially, therefore interest rates stay higher, which means that it makes more sense to hold US dollars because you're getting paid more interest. Anyway, the bottom line of US dollar rising is this. Well, your dollar pension has gone up. But the key benefit of the US dollar rising is, of course, it makes imports cheaper. So wait a minute, imports are cheaper, but he's going to raise a tariff or a tax on imports. Net effect on the consumer, other than little bubbles, none. All right? So he really has got the Canadians, the Mexicans, and the Chinese to pay, because what that means is you can get the same good from China for less dollars, right? And you might say, oh, no, but the Chinese might put tariffs on. They make clear they're not going to do any such stupid thing. Okay? In fact, they want to sell stuff as cheaply as possible. So they're not about to raise their prices. It goes against everything that the Chinese would ever want to do. And I was in Beijing, as I said, at 9/11, and the next day when I was lecturing at the University of International Business, the one question I was asked was, does 9/11 impact social growth? The most important thing for the Communist Party is not having social upheaval, right? And the best way not to have social upheaval is to have steady growth and relatively low inflation. They ain't going to have any tariff war. So the Americans have got the Chinese to pay by the Chinese having to supply the same product for less dollars, and the US consumer is having to give less dollars, except they're getting a tariff on top, so they're giving the same dollars, except some of those dollars are not going to China anymore, they're going to the Treasury. It's genius. When I was at Oxford, I read two things, and I've got a master's degree in economics. I read two books which stand out more than any other. One was a book on game theory, which I recommend, called Thinking Strategically. My economics tutor told me to read that before coming up to Oxford, called by Avinash Dixit, Thinking Strategically. It was about game theory, the new economics. And this is what Trump's doing, game theory. If I do this, they will do Y. It's like chess. What are the next several moves? He can do that. And I'll tell you one other reason why I know he's doing that. The other book I read at the same time was The Art of the Deal, which wasn't on any reading list. I just read it because back then I'd heard of Donald Trump and thought, entrepreneur, wow, businessman, get shit done. Let's read this book. And I'm connecting the two from that time, thinking he totally gets game theory because they're businessmen. The other reason I know he knows what he's doing is because his Treasury Secretary selection is a hedge fund manager who used to work with Soros. Soros, who broke the Bank of England, collapsed the pound, etc., etc. Hedge fund managers get how to think several steps ahead. It is in the bloody training, otherwise we end up bankrupt, right? So he's got a clever team. Incidentally, when Truss crashed the UK economy and lost, and the new Chancellor came in, one of the first things they did is appoint a friend of mine as an advisor to the Treasury and a hedge fund manager. Because they said, oh, we in the Treasury don't understand what the markets do. We need a hedge fund manager to do it. Sushil Vidvani, he used to sit on the Bank of England committee. Wonderful chap, always been helpful to me when I was setting up my hedge fund, said anything you need. And Sushil manages a couple of billion, ex-Goldman Sachs partner. The reason I'm sort of name dropping is it occurs to me that giving this insights from all my experience and expertise actually, well, makes sense to me, but hopefully will make more sense to you. Sushil, hedge fund manager working with the Treasury. The Americans did the same thing. They're not as stupid as they look, and Trump certainly isn't as stupid as the media wants to portray him as. They are so blinded with their bias and hatred. It's why he wins. This time around, Trump 2 is not the buffoon Trump 1 might have arguably been. Bitcoin highs. So anyway, all of that, don't worry about our portfolio. I'm not worried about the markets and what that means. The media is completely calling it wrong on that because they don't get it. I've just posted on LinkedIn. I've messaged Sally, BBC presenter. She and I were co-hosts on my show on Bloomberg TV. So Sally knows I get it. If you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see there's a big bit where she's asking me about oil prices. She says, you're a trader, you get oil. Tell me what's going to happen. So I've messaged her on LinkedIn. It's on my LinkedIn post to say to her, you've got the wrong guys on the BBC at the moment. Now, Bitcoin highs, that's going to continue. One of the reasons we know that is the FCA has just done a press release to say they're looking at regulating it and stuff. If the Americans are going to push for it, the FCA is going to do it. The Treasury was looking at Ripple. Ripple is one of the coins which Andreessen Horowitz, the VC entity in Silicon Valley, has put their money in. If you look at Andreessen Horowitz's website and you dig deep enough, you'll see essentially what they're saying is they will put enough money until they win. Andreessen Horowitz is probably the most respected alongside Sequoia of the venture capitalists in the US. So anyway, my point is this is coming and it's going to happen, and the Bank of England's been testing Ripple to transfer money as well. I'm not saying buy Ripple, by the way. What I'm saying is, because the whole thing about these coins is hold it for 10 years and either it's going to be zero or it's going to be $1 million. I don't know which. But that's going to get fueled. The Americans have done the charge. Britain doesn't like being left behind. Remember the old thing we always seem to say, we're going to be the world leader in, and then ... Okay? And we were meant to be in crypto. Very un-British is crypto. Because it means the wrong type of people are making money, and we don't like that. But we're being dragged there crying and screaming. So that's Bitcoin highs, more money going into some of those. Be careful with that. It really is. I mean, it's like asking me to buy modern art. I can tell you, but God knows if it will be worth anything. Consumer confidence data is about to come out. That's going to be very optimistic. And the reason it's going to be optimistic is Republicans are more emotional on those surveys than Democrats. History shows this. The Republicans are bloody euphoric after this victory. Okay, so consumer confidence goes up. Consumer confidence, good for the stock market. All right, simple as that. This bit, UBS, the chief economist at UBS is a very clever chap. He informs into their wealth management business and all the rest of it. He and I went to the same college at university, and I know what you're all thinking, rolling your eyes, thinking, of course you did. Yeah, it is like that. It is incestuous. And he's one of the few people I listen to because he really sees it the same way and calls it right. And that's why UBS listen to him around the world as well. So that's going to be positive. Bank outlooks, I've put a whole load of those and gone through the Goldman Sachs ones and all the rest of it. Now, here's a clever thing that some of you might have missed, and don't miss this. When you go for your morning run and you swim and all the rest of it, put on your earphones, even if you're swimming, just do it, and listen to the podcast. So what the podcast does, the new podcast that I've got, is it takes, say, the Goldman Sachs ones and it summarizes it into simple language for you. Okay, so you can listen to it while you go for a walk and it'll simplify things. So do it, because I do it. Yeah, I listen back to it because it's flipping amazing. We use Great Investments Program AI automation for those. So, yeah, you might think that guy doesn't sound like you, but the woman doesn't sound like you either. It is flipping amazing, okay, how we've done that, and it is invaluable. So anyway, amongst those, all the outlooks I can see are euphoric, pretty much, okay? So that's good for the market. Now, I'm not a retail fund manager where I have to say this. If the market looked bad, and I'll still reserve judgment based on if it's a daddy bear, which might happen, then none of this will matter. Daddy bear overrules all of this, okay? But I'm just giving you the setup and explaining what's going on in the world. Lebanon. Now, when I went to Beirut, this is not like Palestine, which I've never been to. Beirut's different. You've got the Four Seasons there next to the Beirut Yacht Club, okay? The fact that the Americans have pretty much given the green flag to the Israelis to do what they want, and Trump very much so to get rid of the terrorists, this is different this time. And we know it is because when I went to Damascus, this is going to sound crazy, I know, it was well before all of these problems. There's a Four Seasons in Damascus that I stayed at. And this was in 2008-9 with a young lady I was engaged to at the time. It's a different story. And you have got a Hezbollah and Hamas problem in Lebanon, in Syria, obviously in Iran. I think there's a clean out going on. I say this because and I'm not some kind of cursed Cassandra, I was in Mumbai on 26th November. I did an interview with the BBC. If you put in, I don't know, 26th of November, that's when the terrorist attacks happened. I wasn't in those hotels. There was an interview from Mumbai, from my hotel room, because I was landing to give a speech at the Trident that evening, and the terrorists went to the Taj and the Trident, and on the way, the Foreign Office said, "Where the hell are you?" And my plane had just landed and said, "Right, go to a different hotel." And I gave BBC an interview about what it means economically, that terrorist attack. And I said at the time, well, it means the same thing 9/11 meant for New York and 7/7 meant for London. We'll get past it from an economic perspective, and world will carry on, which obviously it has. The point is this. After that, those terrorists were not cross-border pursued. The countries which sponsored them were not pursued. My point being, this time, Israel, with the backing of the United States, has been given a white card, green flag, call it what you want, to do what they want. And the rest of the Middle East is not going to intervene. So there is still that point of peace in the Middle East and containment of the conflict. Good for the stock market. I say this because when the rabbi was assassinated in Dubai this past week, and I've obviously been to Dubai, can I just say, when bad things happen, I'm not in these places other than 26/11. The Israeli Prime Minister didn't say, well, what do you expect from the UAE? We're sending in forces in, which he wouldn't anyway. So I spent assassination wrong, which is probably reassuring. Instead, he referred to the Abraham Accords. I don't know if you've read the Abraham Accords. They're insanely good. They talk about recognizing and respecting multiple faiths. They are the most woke thing you will ever read to come out of the Middle East. The Israeli Prime Minister said, we will work closer with the UAE because the terrorists don't want us to. Who did the Abraham Accords? Jared Kushner, who they kept laughing at, and Donald Trump. That tells me he does want that Nobel Prize and peace in the bloody Middle East. And he is bothered because he did it last time. If those, for Netanyahu to mention the Abraham Accords at a time when a Jewish rabbi has been assassinated and said we're going to work closer with the UAE does not fit the profile of the man up to that point. Trump's not getting the credit he deserves. That's besides the point. The point is that's going to be benign, good for us on the stock market side. Okay. A few other things. I explained that point already. I've explained this already. Game theory out of the deal when I was at university. The reason Trump is doing this now and saying I'm going to raise these tariffs, what the media is getting wrong because they hate the man so much is just because he says I'm going to do something doesn't mean he's done it. Game theory understands that. It's called a threat. Okay, and that's a technical economic term, by the way, in game theory. It's a threat, right? Why is he doing that now? Because he's got 60 more days, roughly, until he's president. Anything that happens now is a free card to do as you wish, okay? Because he's not president, not his fault, okay? The shitstorm lands with Biden still, or this vacuum period. So do it now, so when you get into office, he doesn't have to deal with as much crap as is happening now anyway, and he's going to be busy then. He started already. That's ingenious, because when he comes in, he probably won't have to deal with many of these problems. Now, he said, I'm going to raise tariffs, and the Canadians are another one. We know this threat is working because Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister, picked up the phone and started talking to Trump. The Chinese said, well, trade wars are not good for anyone. I can't believe the Chinese, who are very wise normally on these things, actually fell for it. What they should have said, and they probably are thinking somewhere, is we're not quite sure what the negotiating strategy is, but these things are ones to be discussed, we're sure. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, we're calling you out. Anyway, it's fine. Nobody's really worried about any of this stuff, but that's why he's doing it, right? Now, you might have missed, the UK did a cyber warning today, somewhat unprecedented, from the National Cybersecurity Centre out of GCHQ on the fact that the Russians are now upping their cyber attacks, which is why earlier on I mentioned that. Now, if I would love to buy Palantir stock. Microsoft is a cyber company. I'd love to buy Palantir, but it's a bit expensive. That's the problem. If I find other cyber companies, or if we can find within GVI, that's the cyber conference I did. I've got another one in Parliament on the 10th of December as well that I'm hosting. So I like to see the early stage, what's happening, and get the feedback from those people, and then see if I can translate that into, if it fits into the Great Investments Program companies, and all other things being equal, one's a cyber, one isn't, then I want to look at it. But that spending is going to increase. The Brits have certainly started it. There is a third world war on cyber, and that means spending increases. I'd love to say NVIDIA graphics cards are being used for, I don't know, cyber companies, but it might not be that one. I'll try and find out what it is. Okay. On that, and I've mentioned this one already. Okay, so that's it for now. We can speak... well, I'll do part 2 of the weekly update in, the traditional one, but I hope you still like these sort of macro updates on what's going on. If you do please let me know so I know to keep doing them. The other things that happened I forgot to mention. So we met up on Sunday. I'll do more. That's my son. Those are some of our Great Investments Program people. That's that YouTube thing that I got. That was on Sunday morning. Claridge's, they came along, and I'll do more of these sort of coffee mornings at Claridge's, actually, I've decided. So I'll try and get different people along. It'd be unfair to have the same 5 or 6. So we turned around and we asked my son, and this happened live, and I've got witnesses. And I said, Rian, which coin did we just buy this weekend? He's only 6. And my pride and joy, he said, Dogecoin, Daddy. And then I said, was the stock market going up or down? He goes, it's going up, I think, Daddy. That's it. I know, bad parenting, but we'll teach him more important things in life about being decent to people and being nice and using money for good, not for greed and destroying things or anything like that. So don't worry about it. But I just thought I'd share some of that of the week. Anyway, if you've liked it, please email me. Please let me know, because now I'll continue doing it. Thanks very much, everyone.